Hi everyone, welcome to the A to Z Movie Show. I'm Charlie Zizza, your average moviegoer.
I'm AJ Beltis, your aspiring movie guru.
And today we're going to be talking about The Darkest Hour.
Just Darkest Hour, not The Darkest Hour.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, let me cross that off then. Darkest Hour. Okay.
Good job.
Cool. So before we get started, I just want to mention a few ways to reach out to us. You can tweet at us at A to Z Movie Show. Or you can like us on Facebook. AJ, how do they do that?
Sure. So our username on Facebook is at A to Z Movie Show. And you can... I'm reading this straight from Facebook. It's now easier for people to find your page in search. People can also visit your page at fb.me/A2Z Movie Show. So like us on Facebook.
Okay, cool. And my personal favorite method of communication is email. So email us at theatozmovieshow@gmail.com, and that's where you should send any of your questions, comments, suggestions for future episodes, etc. We'd love to hear from you guys.
Send them all in.
Yes, please. Also, we'll be on YouTube. All our episodes will be uploaded onto YouTube, so if you prefer to listen to your content on YouTube, go ahead and do that as well. Just make sure you hit the subscribe button.
Charlie, we missed the most important part of the episode.
The beer.
What are you drinking tonight, Charlie?
Today I'm drinking my absolute favorite beer.
Is it your favorite beer?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
It's an IPA from Tree House. Probably the best beer I've ever had. Definitely the best IPA I've ever had.
They only make a lot of IPAs. Which one is it?
Should I say?
No.
Julius.
Dr. J. Good pick.
You just made that up.
No, I swear. Look up Dr.
I don't
J.
want to go on
I
your
swear.
beer blogs. Your
I don't have a beer blog.
Hippie blogs.
So, in my cup tonight, or my glass, I should say, is a beer that is very important to me, and that is from Trapp Brewing. It's one of the first brewery tours I ever took, actually. So this is Trösten. It is their lager, German for comfort. It is a smoked lager. It's very good, dark and toasty. And if you guys like lagers and darker beers for the winter, check out some Trösten from Trapp.
Where is the actual facility?
It's in Stowe, Vermont. It's in the Trapp Family Lodge. So, quick aside, but back in the recession... They said this on the tour. In the recession, their tourism part of the industry wasn't doing so well. And so they said, great, we need to make a comeback. What do people like to do when there's a recession, but they still want to spend money on? And they all came to the conclusion that drinking was the answer. And so 6 years ago, they started brewing, and now they have this awesome beer hall that if you ever visit vacationing winter, summer in Stowe, Vermont, I highly recommend checking out.
That makes complete sense, that people spend money on beer during recessions.
Absolutely.
Of all things.
But I'm going to steal your thunder, Charlie, and say we're not here to talk about beer. We're here to talk about movies. And one of the most important things that we celebrate in movies is the award season, as politicized as they may be. So stay tuned for the Darkest Hour review. It's coming, or you can just look in the show notes to see when we start reviewing it. But for now, we'd like to talk very briefly about some Golden Globe nominations, predictions, and preferences.
Okay, great. And just to remind the audience, when are the Golden Globe
The Golden Globes,
awards?
If you're listening now, this first week of January, they will be this Sunday. If you're listening after the first week of January, then we are either very right or very wrong. But you can look back at this.
So that'll be Sunday, the 7th of January.
That's correct. So
and at what time?
It's 8 o'clock.
Okay.
Let's chat predictions, nominations. Full disclosure, because this isn't our full-time gig, and because a lot of them have not been released in Boston, we have not seen every single movie nominated. I've seen a good amount, but not all of them, and Charlie is still playing catch-up, but I think after the show, he's seen a good amount as well. And we'll have, hopefully by this time when the Oscars come out, we'll have seen all the major nominations. I will have seen at the very least, every Best Picture nomination for the Oscars. Let's chat predictions, preferences, as brief as it might be, but give some guidance, hopefully going into awards night.
Okay. Why don't you get us started, because I'm still looking over these nominations.
Sure.
First time I'm taking a look at these.
No worries. That's what an average moviegoer would do. As your aspiring movie guru and critic, I did take a look at these. I was watching the live nominations, both for TV and for movies. But movies specifically, I have now seen 4 of the Best Drama nominations for Best Motion Picture. The only one I haven't seen yet is The Post, because that doesn't come out until the 12th. Out of these 4, Call Me By Your Name, Dunkirk, Shape of Water, and 3 Billboards, it's no contest for me. Dunkirk is the greatest of them. I think Dunkirk...
Really?
Yeah, Dunkirk's the only one that I think has any chance of making my top 10 this year.
I've heard bad things about Dunkirk.
It's also ironic, and we're reviewing Darkest Hour tonight, that there are 2 movies that come out the same year about Dunkirk, because the Dunkirk invasion is a very significant part of Darkest Hour. But Yeah,
Indirectly,
Dunkirk.
they don't really show
Yeah,
anything.
exactly. But, well, anyways, Dunkirk gets my vote. What I think will win, I honestly have no idea, but I don't think it will be Dunkirk. That's my guess, is that Dunkirk will not win. And I'm also going to say Call Me By Your Name won't win because that was that didn't really perform well in any other categories. I think it just got a Best Actor nomination. It didn't really get any other nomination.
Okay.
So, I mean, you put a gun to my head, I would probably say The Post or Shape of Water. But since I haven't seen The Post yet, I can't guess.
I don't know all the telltale signs of what is more likely to win versus what isn't likely to win. But my initial impressions after looking at this list of 5 would be, I was surprised that Dunkirk was even on the list. I'm surprised that 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri is on the list as well.
Screw that.
Again, not a bad movie, just surprised that it's on there.
Screw that.
I would predict either Call Me By Your Name or The Post. Granted, I haven't seen The Post yet, but it looks like it's going to be a big release when it comes out for the general public, for everybody. I think Call Me By Your Name was a very, very good movie, as you guys remember from last week, hopefully.
So, let's just kind of plow right through these. Musical or comedy: Disaster Artist, Get Out, The Greatest Showman, I, Tonya, and Lady Bird. I've not seen The Greatest Showman or I, Tonya. I do plan on seeing I, Tonya. My preference would honestly probably go to Get Out, even though it's not a comedy, just because out of these 5 movies, they're the best. And out of all 5 of them, it probably did make me laugh the most, despite the fact that it wasn't a comedy. But I think Lady Bird has this one. Just it's been sweeping.
What's that one?
Lady Bird is just about a girl growing up in 2002. She's 17. It's very funny. Got Lucas Hedges in there. Saoirse Ronan is a fantastic actress, and so I think Lady Bird really it's their trophy to lose.
Okay. I really liked Get Out. I still don't get why it's in this category. You explained it to me a little while ago. I still don't get it. I think it's almost borderline insulting to the movie that it's in that category because I don't think it was intended to be a comedy.
It is insulting.
But, so I'm going to leave that one out. The Disaster Artist, I think, could potentially win. It was very funny. It was just a very solid movie. And I haven't seen the other ones, so I can't speak to them.
All right, so we've got 8 more movie categories, but let's rapid fire them on your prediction and your preference.
Okay.
So, Best Actor in a Motion Picture Drama: Timothée Chalamet, Daniel Day-Lewis, Tom Hanks, Gary Oldman, Denzel Washington. My preference there is going to be Gary Oldman for sure, and I think he's also my prediction. I still haven't seen Phantom Thread, but
yeah,
that's my preference and prediction.
Okay. I do like Daniel Day-Lewis. Tom Hanks, just based on the trailers for The Post, looks very good, but he's always very good.
Yeah.
Gary Oldman for Winston Churchill, I can see that as well. I would say that is more likely because I think he did a fantastic job, but we'll get into that a little bit later.
Actress in a drama: Jessica Chastain, Sally Hawkins, Frances McDormand, Meryl Streep, and Michelle Williams. This, I honestly think, could be a toss-up because I see this as a 4-person race. I don't think Michelle Williams has any chance, which is sad because I think she's a fantastic actress, but...
Have you seen this movie?
I have not seen All the Money in the World.
Okay.
But she was, by pundits, nowhere even near close to nominations. I'll go ahead and say my preference here will be Sally Hawkins, which, again, ironic. Going into this movie, I really didn't like her, but I thought she pulled it out. Prediction, probably Frances McDormand, just based on the polls.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
and I really don't care to see her win.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you there. I don't want to give it to Sally Hawkins for The Shape of Water because I don't like the movie very much. Love Meryl Streep. I'm just going to go ahead and say Meryl Streep. I love her.
All right. My prediction for actor in a comedy is James Franco. My preference is going to be Ansel Elgort from Baby Driver because I loved that movie and I wanted to get more recognition.
Who is Daniel Kaluuya?
He was
the
Chris,
main guy?
the main actor, yeah.
Okay. James Franco.
For both? Preference and prediction?
Yes.
Yeah.
To me, those are almost the same.
Yep. Actress in a comedy, I think this is Saoirse Ronan to lose for both prediction and preference. And I also haven't seen 3 of these movies. So, sorry, Judi Dench, Helen Mirren, and Margot Robbie.
I haven't seen a single one of these movies. This is bad.
Next, supporting actor, we got Willem Dafoe from Florida Project, Armie Hammer from Call Me By Your Name, Richard Jenkins from Shape of Water, Christopher Plummer in All the Money in the World, and Sam Rockwell in 3 Billboards. I haven't seen All the Money in the World, but all 4 of these guys did a pretty solid job. Mm-hmm. So, I hate to take the gold away from the Florida Project. My preference is, honestly, Armie Hammer from Call Me By Your Name. I mentioned that last week. I was indifferent on the movie, but loved his performance. But I think Willem Dafoe is going to win this one. I'm breaking my own rule about no commentary, so Charlie, take it away.
All right, haven't seen that. I've seen Call Me By Your Name, The Shape of Water, and 3 Billboards. I would like to see it go to Armie Hammer, and I would also predict it goes to him.
Armie Hammer, interesting. All right, I'm going to just say we skip supporting actress because I have seen 2 of these movies. Laurie Metcalf didn't really do much for me, and I don't like that Octavia Spencer is always nominated because she never does anything. Okay. So let's skip that. So, director, Charlie, knock us off.
Let's see. I've only seen 2 of these. I guess I'd have to give it to Shape of Water, Guillermo del Toro.
You would say that's the best directed?
Well, I've only seen 2 of them.
Okay. Out of the 2, yeah.
Water, so yeah.
Prediction? What's your prediction?
Shape of Water.
Yeah. I hate to say it, but I think your prediction is probably going to be correct. My preference is also going to go to Christopher Nolan for Dunkirk.
Okay.
If you see the way it's put together, it's very impressive. Best screenplay, definitely not The Shape of Water. That was not a great screenplay. I've only seen 3 of these. I think Aaron Sorkin has a chance. He won the Golden Globe for Steve Jobs, but I think Greta Gerwig is going to get it for Lady Bird. And out of these ones that I have seen, that's my preference.
Okay. I have no opinion on this one except that I should go see Lady Bird. I'll definitely do that.
And then we'll kick it off with score, and we'll end it with score. Charlie, you wanted to talk about score?
Talk about score. Just because I think it's an important category. Based on the trailer for The Post, it sounded good to me.
I loved the score in that trailer.
Yeah, it was for Shape of Water. I don't remember it. 3 Billboards, also
I don't remember it at all.
So I'm going to say The Post. Phantom Thread looked good when we saw that trailer today. AJ, what do you think?
Dunkirk, I think it's the most inventive score. And I don't know if you've heard any clips from it, but it's just, they use like a watch ticking as part of the score to increase the intensity of being on the beach at Dunkirk.
So it's very now clever. That we've seen this movie, that makes complete sense. Well, that's a perfect transition into our main topic today, which is the review for Darkest Hour. AJ, why don't you give us a description of this movie?
Sure. Here I go, pretending that I had prepared something for this. Darkest Hour is a 2017 British biographical war drama film. It is about the secession of Winston Churchill, who takes over the role for Neville Chamberlain in 1940s during the wake of World War II. And when Churchill is faced with a decision about whether or not to concede or make peace with Hitler and the Nazi Party. It stars Gary Oldman, one of the most versatile and respected actors working today for film, as Winston Churchill himself, Kristen Scott Thomas as his wife, Lily James from Baby Driver as his assistant, and also Stephen Dillane and Ben Mendelsohn. It was directed by Joe Wright of the wonderful and very underappreciated film Atonement and the absolute bomb Pan.
So, going into this movie, I did not expect a whole lot out of it. AJ, I believe you had told me ahead of time this morning that it got something like 80% Rotten Tomatoes all around. I was like, okay, well, that sounds like it'll be decent. After the movie, I thought it was better than I expected. The acting on the part of Gary Oldman as Winston Churchill is very, very good. The interaction between all the characters was very good. Both the way that it was historically and the way that they actually represented that and the way that the actors carried it out. Very good. For the most part, entertaining. I think that its length was justified. And, yeah, I walked away happy with this movie.
All right. I slightly disagree with you on a couple points there. The first one being that the movie did a lot of justice to the actors and their interactions. So what I will agree with you on is that I thought Gary Oldman, whatever award he is competing for, this is his award to lose. He showed complete range in Churchill, everything from the humor to the drama to the intensity to the conflict to the alcoholism. There were so many complex layers of Winston Churchill, all of which were touched upon and fleshed out in this movie. One area that I feel like felt a little bit more hollow was the way that he interacted with people, I would say outside of his wife. There were a lot of different characters that he did have to interact with. One of them was his secretary, Elizabeth, who was played by Lily James, who I think did a great job, but wasn't really given much to work with. And then you've also got the people who he's supposed to be working with, but is, again, sort of at odds with, and that's, I believe, Lord Halifax and Neville Chamberlain. So, to me, their characters were just kind of there as devices for Churchill to disagree with someone. I never really felt a lot of development from them. I never really felt that they had any standout moments or scenes or devices. And the reason that bothers me is because, yes, I do recognize that they're sort of there to propel his character and just sort of, again, be there as a device for Churchill to show his power and assert his dominance as prime minister. But I feel like there was an opportunity there to develop those relationships or those clashes so much more, and that would have left everybody a lot better off, because you would have seen him clash with somebody who is a really well-developed character so we could understand both sides of the arguments. Then you could frame it as him being the winner or him being stubborn, and that would have felt all the more effective.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm really not feeling the strength of the characters aside from Churchill, because again, this is a movie.
Well, the focus is on Churchill.
I know, and I agree with that.
That's what the movie's about.
I totally agree with you there. That said, I think it would have been a better movie if they kept the focus on Churchill, but also expanded the characters outside of him so that everything would have felt a lot more rich.
So do you mean go more into depth as to who these characters were, who Chamberlain was, who the other guy was?
Yeah,
I mean, you can only develop a character who is historical so much. You can go into detail more, but we shouldn't be changing who they are or exaggerating.
No, of course not. And I'm not suggesting lying. I don't think that's the proper course of action in any sort of historical movie. But I think you're right. I think going into detail and sort of elaborating on some of those conversations and what they meant and following people up. I would be okay with an extra 10, 15 minutes of this movie if it meant developing those characters a little bit more, because there were opportunities that could have been achieved, and it would have been a lot more successful, I feel.
Okay. What do you think about the king and his role in the movie?
Yeah, so and I think this also transitions pretty well into the humor that I thought was good in the movie. One of the first scenes where you see the king is when Churchill accepts the role of prime minister, and it's just this really awkward discussion because both of them know that they don't like each other, but they sort of need each other. The country needs Churchill for his resolve, and Churchill needs the king to appoint him to the position.
Right.
And so it's just a formality, and there's just so much awkward humor that comes out of it. This is a very British movie, from the dialogue to the acting to the story to the history to the setting and the context. It's as British as you would expect this movie to be. And I don't mean that as an insult, I just mean that it is very much a British movie. So to answer your question, what I think about the king, I thought he was there to serve a purpose of being a comedian. I would also say that his character tied back in a lot more strongly than other characters in the film were given an opportunity to do so. And I think when he sort of came around and gave Churchill his blessing, I thought that was a pretty good character arc. Let's talk about one aspect, like I talked about earlier, which was the humor. I think it was, again, very British, very dry, and very sporadic, but when it was there, it surprisingly worked. It was dry, but at the same time quite refreshing. And one scene that I want to draw attention to is the scene where Churchill takes the tube to one stop to Westminster Station and has that little conversation with all the people, like, what would you think if I negotiated with Hitler, and do you think we're doing a good job, and what's your outlook? And it's just everyone's reaction is like, oh, you're doing a great job, and no, we don't want to do it.
One of the best scenes in the movie.
That was probably the best scene in the movie. And of course, one good scene does not a movie make, but I enjoyed that scene very much. That was a turning point for the movie when I was sort of teetering on, am I going to give this a thumbs up or a thumbs down? Spoiler alert, I'm going to give it a thumbs up, and this scene was one of the reasons why.
Okay. I think one of the scenes that stands out to me is, I think it was the opening scene, or one of the very first scenes, where Churchill's just getting out of bed. He's sort of transitioning into the shift of power that's happening in the country at the time.
They focus on like his bacon and stuff.
His personal life, and who he is as a character. And that's a lot different from the person that you see sort of in the middle of the movie when he's dealing with all this stress and all this pressure. And that's not something that I really thought about Churchill. I didn't think of him as like this goofy guy. I thought of him as a very serious guy.
Yeah. And another area where I'll give the movie credit is, I know I've sort of been on a cinematography stint these past few episodes, but this was so incredibly shot.
I agree.
And a couple moments that I also want to bring attention to. One is whenever they were sort of walking by a window, it was dark on the inside, but the light was sort of shining in from the outside of the window, and it almost seemed like they were walking through smoke. And I don't know if you noticed that. Yeah. But it was just it was a cool vibe that I got from this shot. I said there's a lot of attention to detail.
Very stuffy British vibe.
Yes.
One might say.
And then also the very pristine vibe. And the scene that you mentioned earlier where he goes and accepts the position as prime minister, they shoot his entrance very well, and there's gold all over the place. And
I really wish I did more research historically so I could speak to the historical accuracy.
Well, something I would like to talk about was the dialogue. And maybe this was just me not paying super close attention, but it was very hard to follow. I didn't like the words
because
that
the
they
dude
used.
Mumbles.
Well, not even the delivery of the dialogue, but the actual writing, the actual words that they used. And I haven't looked into whether or not they've sourced them for accuracy or if that's actually how they talked. But for me, I was not able to follow the story given the dialogue that was presented to me.
Okay.
And that came through with a lot of subplots that were just sort of introduced and then forgotten about. So, to your point earlier, they brought in Dunkirk, and they made it this very pressing issue, and then they just sort of seemed to forget about it, and then they came back to it, and then they sort of forgot about it again, and then they bring it up in the end. Remember when those end credit shots where it's all of Dunkirk's soldiers were evacuated, which I felt no tension for because I already saw Dunkirk and I knew that happened. So
yeah, it's almost like they didn't know what the main point of stress was.
Mm-hmm. It's something that I felt to a lesser extent in the Imitation Game, that they were sort of going for all these different ideas. Imitation Game was a little bit more unfocused than this, at least in my opinion. But
one thing that I noticed was when Churchill got the idea, and I don't know if historically he came up with this on his own or who somebody gave it to him or what, but in the movie he came up with that on his own, more or less. And, the idea of Operation Dynamo, which was to have all the civilian boats, private boats, yachts or fishing vessels, whatever, go from the mainland of Britain to France to save all these British soldiers.
Literally the plot of Dunkirk, but yes.
Yeah, so it's like a big revelation to him, but then it sort of goes away, and then it comes back again. And I wasn't understanding why he wasn't emphasizing this great idea that he had, which historically it was amazing.
Yeah, you have to think about what was his main accomplishment that the movie was trying to focus on. The fact that he ordered the Dunkirk invasion? Was it the fact that he refused to negotiate with Hitler, or was it the fact that he gained the approval of his colleagues?
I don't know that your premise is necessarily the case for the movie, though. I don't know that the movie was focusing on Churchill being this amazing guy, this amazing leader, because I think that they showed throughout the movie that he's not that in a lot of ways. It's more of a portrayal of who he was as a person, and he's just this flawed person leading this country, and he wasn't even necessarily prepared for it. He didn't even necessarily know it was coming. I'm not sure how true that is or not, but in the movie it seemed like he was only sort of prepared on short notice to take up this position, and you see his struggles throughout the movie. So I don't know that it was showing this great victory on his part, because I think that's a questionable proposition.
Yeah. All right. So any last thoughts for you on Darkest Hour? Before we jump into our rating.
No, I mean, the acting was really good. I think it made the movie. If the acting was not good, then this movie would be bad. Yeah, so, for example, if you're the type of person who didn't like the movie The King's Speech, you might not like this movie, because it's a similar idea. It's about a character. It's about the performance of this sort of strong personality on screen. So if you don't like that concept, you might not like this movie. But if you do, or if you're interested in World War II or Churchill, then it's definitely something they might want to go see. Yeah. I think the pacing was a little bit off.
Just a little bit for me. It wasn't a detriment, but it was not a perfectly paced movie.
Yeah, so, and then you have the issue of it being focused on character development and one character and acting. So the scope of events that it covers is limited. So if you're not interested in the very narrow topic that it's covering, then you might not be entertained throughout the whole movie.
But, yeah, I would agree with you that you wouldn't be entertained throughout the whole movie, but I do still think there are plenty of saving graces that if you do see this movie, I don't think you're going to leave disappointed. I don't think you're going to leave upset or that you wasted your money. I think that it's a good investment if you're looking in. If you're on the fence, this is definitely a wise investment, I think.
Yeah.
So, I mean, with that said, I'll go ahead and give my rating, and I'm going to go ahead and give Darkest Hour a 3.5 out of 5. And the reason I'm doing that is because I'm still in the work in progress of judging a movie about what it was and what it was trying to be as opposed to what I wanted it to be. And putting my feelings of, occasional boredom or disinterest and lack of passion about the subject matter, I gotta say, I do think they did a relatively good job of showcasing Winston Churchill, this 3-week snippet of his life, with a good air of humor. Again, relatively well paced. I thought the score was good, the music was good, the acting all around was great, and the story was good, not great. One area of opportunity I feel like it could have had was developing these characters a bit more so we could understand the other layers of Churchill besides what was going on in his mind, but more so how he did interact with those around him. I think there was a lot of great talents on the billing here that didn't get the justification that they needed as actors. So I think the screenplay, I don't want to say it let them down, I just don't think it gave them the opportunity to shine. So kudos to the cinematography. Yeah, this is definitely a movie that I did enjoy. So 3.5 out of 5 for Darkest Hour.
Okay. You actually changed my mind on the rating. I was going to originally give this movie 4 out of 5 stars. I'm going to change that to a 3.5 out of 5.
Okay.
That's not to necessarily match your rating, but I do want to downgrade it a little bit. Possibly for some of the reasons that you mentioned. The main reason is that, again, the acting makes this movie. Gary Oldman's performance of Winston Churchill makes this movie. Mm-hmm. And it is very good. But now that I'm thinking about it, if his performance was any less good than it is, then this movie would be kind of bad.
I mean, I wouldn't go so far to say bad. I think there was good direction. I think, again, that you can't knock the humor. There's plenty of good production design and...
Yeah, but again, that to me doesn't make a movie. So the main character here is Churchill. I thought that he was portrayed very well in this movie. Mm-hmm. He was entertaining. But again, without him, this movie is very, very mediocre at best. So for that reason, I'm going to give it a 3.5 out of 5. I don't want to take away from how good this movie is, because it is a very good movie. Mm-hmm. And Gary Oldman's performance is great. But again, without it, it would not be something that I would want to go see.
Speaking of Gary Oldman, let's chat about him for a second, because I know that you're not extremely familiar with his work, but again, this is one of the most versatile actors in movies today. And I mean, if I just throw out a couple of his titles your way, I think you might understand. But Dracula, Air Force One, Harry Potter, The Dark Knight, and now this. So a man who can go from being a wizard to a Russian terrorist to a prime minister to a man who's trying to kill an assassin to Lee Harvey Oswald to a drug dealer.
He played Lee
Harvey Oswald in JFK.
Whoa.
So this man is just he has this incredible ability to both be a chameleon and to be so unique. So you can see him immerse himself into every single role that he does. But he also still has like a very Gary Oldman approach to him.
Okay.
So
I think I didn't know that he had played Sirius Black in Harry Potter until we had talked about it. Mm. But comparing that performance to this one, or even his role in The Dark Knight, I do see that variety that you're talking about. I mean, Sirius Black is nothing like the Commissioner in The Dark Knight.
Have you seen Air Force One?
I've seen it a couple times, but I don't remember who you're talking about.
He's just the main villain, and even when I was 13 years old and saw that movie for the first time, I was blown away. I remember specifically loving his villain in the movie. He was the one who Harrison Ford grabbed by the neck and said, "Get off my plane," and threw him off.
I really don't remember. I think I watched that movie a couple times in passing as it was on TV, with commercials and all that. So I wasn't really focused on it.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, this guy's career spans decades. So one thing that some people are saying, and not especially, but that this is almost a career Oscar for him because of all of the work that he's given to the industry. And
I don't think he looks like Churchill though. I don't think Gary Oldman looks like, even in the movie, anything like Winston Churchill. I was a little bit put off by that.
It didn't bother me so much, but I also feel like that's to his credit. Because
I would rather have a good actor who can play the role than one that looks just like him.
Mm-hmm. So, again, I think the closest competitor that he has to this Oscar this year is going to be Timothée Chalamet from Call Me By Your Name, and again, no contest whatsoever, at least in my opinion. But we'll just have to wait and see.
He was
Leo.
Okay, I would agree.
Yeah. So, I mean, good luck, Gary Oldman. I think you got this. Any last comments on Gary Oldman, the Golden Globes, or Darkest Hour?
Nope. I have said everything I have to say.
All right. So, Happy New Year, everyone. We will see you guys next week for a review of Mudbound, a movie on Netflix. Until then, I've been AJ Beltis, here with Charlie Zizza, and this is the A to Z Movie Show.